Well, let's discuss this now with the Conservative MP Richard Bacon, who serves on the Public Accounts Committee, with Emma Boone of the Taxpayers Alliance and Jonathan Bourne, the General Secretary of the FDA, the trade union for top civil servants. 2,000, are you surprised it's so high?
Do you know, I'm not actually, and when we last discussed this, I said I think it's probably wider than some people expect. I think it's rife across local government and the health service, and it's interesting that in this letter...
The health service isn't even included in these figures.
Indeed it's not, but the letter today suggests that the Health Secretary and the Education Secretary should take a close look in their areas, and I think that's right. Goodness knows, it may even be possible that one or two people are doing it in the BBC, Jeremy.
Quite possible, yeah. I don't know who.
No, I don't either, but there are people like Reed Consulting and Penner who are employing people who work for the BBC. So there's a lot of it going on, and I think it's wrong. I think where people are public servants, they should pay tax, and the simplest way is...
Maybe, hang on a sec, we just come to that. Some of these people may be your members. Is it legitimate?
At senior levels, this should not be happening. If you're in a board-level appointment in the civil service, you should be fully employed by the department. In fact, I think most people are. I think we will find that most of these 2,000 people are not in senior roles. Many of them, in fact, will not be in the civil service. They'll be in arm's length bodies or quangos, and a lot of them will be technical consultants. They'll be in IT, they'll be in HR, and other technical professions. And that does happen in the wider economy where you have short-term posts. What I found disturbing was the length of time some of these people had been in this kind of role, paid off the books.
But as you know, I mean, Ed Lester, this is a senior figure. He ran the student loan company.
And I don't know anybody who will defend that, actually. Certainly most senior civil servants were pretty upset about it because most people pay their tax as they expect to, and they think it's very unfair if colleagues are not being treated in exactly the same way.
From a Taxpayers Alliance point of view, this may actually be saving the taxpayer money.
I don't think it is, though. It's
We don't know.
Well, first of all, the sense of unfairness about it, I think, is an important fact. You can't look at this blindly from an economic perspective and say, is this saving us money? First of all, you have to look at the situation here. These people are claiming that they are consultants. These people, in many cases, have been working for up to 2 years in the same post, may have
40% of them over 2 years.
May have only had one client, and being paid in this way and not paying your tax through PAYE and having it deducted at source and paying national insurance contributions as you should, and sitting alongside people in the same office doing a very similar role who are paying a lot more tax than you are is unfair. And second of all, these people are claiming they're consultants. They're not. They're very clearly doing something that should be as a salaried role. They should be paying through PAYE like
the problem is we don't know precisely what they're doing, do we?
No, we don't, and I think we do need some more details about that.
So what happens next?
Well, I mean, 2 marks out of 3, or certainly 1.5 marks out of 3 for the Treasury starting to dig into this and to get to the bottom of it. It's going to require quite a large spade to dig out this particular stable. And it's all very well for an edict to come out of the Treasury, and I very much welcome that. But, you know, today, the Equality and Human Rights Commission, I was told earlier today, agreed an extra 17, or an existing 17 interims to be continued for a further year. So it's one thing for the Treasury to say something, but actually for it to happen on the ground is another. And I suspect there are a lot of people in the administration who would like to continue in the old sweet way that's been going on for many years, and this is going to take a lot of rigour and political drive from the top to make something happen.
George Osborne likely to accept the recommendation from
I think he will. In fact, I hope he'll go further. I know David Cameron is very much concerned and seized about this. I know because he wrote me a letter in which he said that he was, and I think they've got to take this very, very seriously.
So you think that there is a good chance that the government will break contracts that it's legally entered into?
Well, it's not easy to break existing contracts, and of course it depends what they say. You don't want to make lawyers rich, of course you don't. But you know, if they are interim, by definition, they ought to be able to be broken or got rid of with break clauses fairly easily.
This is exactly the point. These people cannot have it both ways. They cannot say they want to be paid as interim staff, but then try and claim the rights of staff who are on the payroll, who are paying their taxes in a different way. It's a completely different way of being employed.
And the other point to make is if it is necessary to change the law, we just changed the law on shopping hours for the Olympics, and we did it in about 4 minutes at the end of the session of the last Parliament. So if we really need a quick bill, then we should have one. And if they want me to take it through, I will. And I might put on a couple of bells and whistles so we get a bypass for Long Stratton at the same time.
It's not that straightforward actually to breach contracts in that way, but I think if you look at how long this has been going on, according to the letter, 40% of these people have been on these kind of contracts for at least 2 years, so we're going back into the previous government as well. There are long-term issues here. Now, for those people in senior roles, rather than the contractors as such, there is an issue about pay levels in the senior civil service, which often are below, and this has been used as a way of getting around some of the pay levels. So we need an intelligent debate about what are fair levels of pay in senior roles.
That's the argument that's being used to justify this sort of arrangement, isn't it? That it's the only way you will get people in from the private sector.
I don't think it justifies that. I think it highlights the fact there is an issue about where we set pay levels. Public sector pay levels will never just mirror the private sector, and I don't think most people think they should, but you have to have an intelligent debate. And I think recently we have had a rather crude approach to recruitment bans and recruitment freezes, and people have tried to get round it. So we need to be intelligent about this, but you should not be holding a senior management role and being paid in this way. It's just unethical.
If the consequence was that you drove away talented people who said, I'm not going to come and work here anymore, I'm going to go back to the private sector or wherever they've come from, that would be bad from a taxpayer's point of view, wouldn't it?
No one's saying we're going to drive away talented people. There's a very big difference between wanting to hire and retain very skilled and talented staff at the high levels of the senior civil service and wanting to remunerate them well and wanting to offer them a pension and retain those staff, and paying staff on short-term interim contracts like an IT expert, for example, to come in for a short period of time on a specific project and paying them in a different way, and they make their own tax arrangements. These are very, very different things that shouldn't be confused.
There is a much broader issue as well, which is how is it that the senior civil service, the fast stream, is still one of the top graduate recruiters. We take some of the brightest people in the country into the civil service, and then it's not their fault, but the career formation and the way the culture is structured is such that 20 years later, they're not all by any means in a position to take top management roles. They don't have the management skills to marshal the combination of people and money and time and technology in the way that any manager has to be able to do to fill these top roles, which is why 40% of directors general are now coming from the outside. In some ways that's a good thing because it's providing extra fresh blood, but at the bottom of the civil service with the fast stream there is still a big unresolved issue there in terms of career formation. It's something that needs to be addressed.
But there's other issues around skills formation. Why isn't government able to generate good IT people, for example? And to be fair, I don't think we've been very successful in some of the HR roles. So we do need to stand back and look at what skills you need in the central government and actually in the wider public sector over the next 5 to 10 years. Generate people with the skills and pay them in a way that at least keeps them and doesn't just leave them trained up and then rushing out into the private sector to get very much higher pay levels.
For you, the decisive thing is, do these people have managerial responsibility as opposed to being a specialist?
I think that's a very important one. I think if you are in a senior management role at board level or just below that, there is no question that these arrangements should not operate. And that should be the same in the arm's length bodies. The Ed Lester case, without going into the detail of that, I think highlighted an anomaly. It was just not right. It shouldn't have happened. It was clearly happening under the last government. It has continued under this government. It shouldn't be the case. But I think we also have to recognise on the short-term technical specialists, then this is an economy-wide issue.
Okay, thank you all very much.